How familiar are you with pastas of Italy? You probably have heard of spaghetti, of course, fusilli, tagliatelle. But in every region, there is a dish or pasta that even other Italians don't know about. So let's have a look at what they are. And in fact, there are so many of them. We're going to be doing this in 3 parts. So part 1, we're in northern Italy. And let's start in the very far north in Val d'Aosta and an absolutely fantastic dish called Favo.
Piera lives in Ozzane in the Aosta Valley. She's a dairy farmer, and Andrea hitched a ride on her ape to visit her cattle. These are alpine red cows, and Piera uses their milk to make fontina, a key ingredient in the dish Piera is going to make for us, called Favo. Back home, which has views of Mont Blanc, Piera harvests her last carrot with some celery. Mother Luisa and mother-in-law Luciana are given the task of prepping the vegetables. Piera uses a mezzaluna to dice them. She uses a mixture of butter and a little oil to soften the vegetables. These are her homegrown broad beans, or fave in Italian. Piera's sausages are a mix of pork and beef. She skins, then crumbles the meat into the softened vegetables. She fries the mixture for a couple of minutes before adding a chopped garlic clove. Piera adds a pinch of salt, followed by the fava beans. She pours in plenty of boiling water. Meanwhile, Luisa and Luciana are breaking the pane nero into pieces. This bread is made with rye and wheat flours. It is dried completely hard, and the result is a kind of rusks which lasts a year. In fact, Piera makes hers once a year at Christmas time. To soften the pieces, Piera melts plenty of butter, then she fries them gently. Luciana tastes a piece. They're still crunchy. She puts them to one side for the moment. This is a herb called summer savoury, which Piera freezes for year-round use. She swishes a twig in the vegetables so the flavour is not too strong. Piera tastes the liquid to make sure it's just right.
Buonissimo.
Piera adds a short ridged pasta called di tale rigate. It has to absorb all the water and needs around 20 minutes to cook. Piera keeps her fontina cheese in her cellar. The sign of good fontina is the absence of holes in the cheese, and this has a very smooth texture. She cuts a hefty chunk, just under a kilo, and removes the rind.
Che buona.
She then slices it into slithers. The pasta is cooked. Piera sprinkles over some cinnamon. She heaps in the pane nero with its butter and gives it a good stir. Next, she adds the cheese, which she stirs until it melts and goes stringy. And it's ready in time for supper. But first, some photos. Franco joins the family and everyone tucks in. Buon appetito!
Now, in Piemonte, just to the south of Val d'Aosta, rice is a very popular carbohydrate. So here they have a fantastic rustic risotto called Panissa.
Giuseppina lives in the village of Arborio in Piemonte. The Arborio rice variety is named after it. Arborio is a cross between Vialone and a variety that nobody has heard of called Lady Wright. These are all paddy fields. Giuseppina is making panissa, a rustic sausage and bean rice dish typical of the Vercelli rice growing area. It needs a meat stock, which she has already made. Giuseppina has simmered beef shin, carrot, onion and celery for several hours. And she has soaked and boiled the local variety of borlotti bean, called borlotti di Saluggia. Giuseppina dices a couple of shallots with her mezzaluna. She minces some lardo. This is cured pork fat, not lard. She skins and breaks up the meat of a fresh salami called salame sottograsso, which has been kept under fat. Her rice hasn't travelled far, so it's in a cotton bag. Giuseppina allows a handful of rice per person. This copper pan is the traditional way to cook panissa, and it's great for conducting heat fast and evenly. Giuseppina pours in a little olive oil and adds the shallots, followed by the lardo and salame. She fries them for a few minutes before adding the rice. She gives everything a good stir and cooks it for another minute or two. Then she adds a glass of Barbera red wine. Giuseppina lets the alcohol burn off, stirring all the time. The meat stock and the bean liquor are keeping warm in separate pans. Giuseppina adds 2 ladles of bean liquor followed by 3 of meat stock. She keeps stirring as you would a risotto. She seasons with salt. She alternates the 2 broths, being careful not to drown the rice. The tomato paste adds a little colour to the rice. When the rice is no longer crunchy in the middle, Giuseppina scoops in the cooked beans. Giuseppina is a fan of arborio rice. She is also a fan of Juventus Football Club and likes to go to matches with her grandsons. She seasons the panissa with black pepper. Giuseppina finishes it with a dollop of butter and several handfuls of grated parmesan. She gives it a final check.
Buonissima. È proprio buona.
Husband Giovanni and grandson Federico are the taste testers.
Melè.
Buonissima.
Ecco, bravo, bravo.
Brava nonna.
Basin.
Buon appetito a tutti.
So now let's move to Liguria. Now this isn't strictly a pasta, it's actually a fried pastry, but it's a pasta type dough. And it's so delicious I wanted to include it anyway. And it's called Gattafin.
What is more delicious than ravioli? Fried ravioli. And Adele is sharing her recipe for Gattafin, a speciality of Levanto in Cinque Terre. And here she is. The Gattafin filling is foraged herbs. These come from the greengrocers opposite her flat. The forager keeps her locations a secret. The herbs can vary, but Adele has a mixture which includes dandelion, poppy, borage and chard. They need trimming and cleaning before boiling until tender. Adele and her husband ran a restaurant for 46 years. Adele chops up 2 onions and softens them in olive oil. She makes the pasta dough with 300 grams of 00 flour, a pinch of salt, roughly 50 ml each of olive oil and white wine, and enough water to bring it all together. She kneads this until it is smooth, which takes a good 5 minutes. Then she leaves it to rest for half an hour. A dough scraper is a useful tool for keeping the board clean. Adele has a good tip for draining wild greens. She squeezes the leaves dry, then chops them thoroughly. Adele adds them to the onions. You can tell she has worked in a restaurant. She adds an egg followed by grated Parmigiano and a little pecorino sardo for spiciness. Finally, Adele chops up some parsley and marjoram, a herb that's often found in Ligurian cooking. She mixes this all together. Some cooks add ricotta, but Adele thinks Gattafin are better without. The dough meanwhile has relaxed and is nice and soft. Adele rolls it out. It doesn't need to be too thin, about 2 to 3 millimeters thick. She places a generous tablespoon of greens along the dough, making sure there's plenty of space between the portions. She cuts around them, folds the dough over the filling and cuts a half-moon shape. They don't have to be too precise. Adele repeats the process until she has used up her filling. Adele prefers to use peanut oil to fry her Gattafin. If bubbles form when you place a wooden skewer in the oil, it's hot enough. The oil is about 1 centimetre deep in her frying pan. She places the pastries in the oil once it's hot and fries them on each side until puffed and golden. She drains them on kitchen paper and finishes them with a little salt. They're delicious.
Now, this is a really obscure pasta, and I got absolutely obsessed with trying to track it down, which I did eventually. The name of the pasta is fasacc, and that means baby's swaddling clothes or baby's nappies. And it's made in one little village just to the north of Lake Iseo. So enjoy.
Fasacc are ravioli from the north of Lake Iseo in Lombardy. Eleanor and her friends are making a filling with Parmigiano and Nostrano cheeses, breadcrumbs, chopped parsley and sage, a spice mix called saporita, and a tiny bit of garlic. They bind the mixture with egg, meat stock and melted butter. For the dough, Anna uses 00 flour, olive oil, a beaten egg, a pinch of salt and tepid water. Anna's sister has the task of kneading the dough until it is smooth and soft. She then leaves it to rest. Anna cuts little pillows of dough and everyone rolls these out into circles. The women put a generous teaspoon of the filling onto each. They fold a bit of dough over the filling. This is the top of the ravioli. Then they pull the dough from either side, wrapping the filling. Making them is a group effort. Here is a slow wrap. Fasacc means swaddled babies in the local dialect. And now Anna is going normal speed. Every year there is a sagra or food festival celebrating this pasta in Artogne. The fasacc are boiled in salted water. Anna checks to see if they're done. They are dressed with plenty of melted butter and sage. Buon appetito!
Okay, so Luca Dusi's mum very kindly shared her recipe for Papparelle, not pappardelle, Papparelle. It's a beloved Sunday lunch dish in the Veneto region, and it's actually a kind of very fine angel hair pasta. So enjoy this one. So with chicken livers.
Angelina uses 100 grams of 00 flour for every egg. Hands are better than a fork to mix them together. She kneads the dough until it is silky and smooth, and keeps it well floured to stop it being sticky. Angelina's daughter has borrowed her extra long rolling pin, so she cuts the dough in half to manage it more easily. Then she rolls it up to cut it into very thin ribbons. The day is humid, so it's important to shake out the pasta and keep it well spread out. The tea towel also helps. To make the liver condimento or dressing, Angelina adds raw onion, olive oil, butter, and cleaned and chopped chicken livers. She cooks the livers over a gentle heat in an earthenware pot, adding white wine and chopped rosemary. Sale the kitten finds the smell irresistible. Angelina decides she's made too much papparelle, so she kneads them back into the dough and blitzes it to form tiny balls of pasta, called grattini in Italian. These can be frozen and used in soup another time. Angelina has already made stock, which takes a couple of hours to cook. The boiled meats will be served as a main course with salsa verde. She simmers the pasta for a couple of minutes in the broth. This is a Sunday lunch favourite for families in Verona. Now let's move to Trentino Alto Adige for Cjarsons de Closein. Carla and her neighbour Liliana live in Vigo di Fassa. Today they are making pear ravioli with the help of Leon, Carla's grandson. Carla makes a dough with 200 grams of 00 flour, 2 eggs, 1 tablespoon of oil and a pinch of salt. Liliana then kneads this until the dough is smooth. She and Leon roll out the dough. Pasta making is a great way to get kids cooking. They start with the widest setting, folding and turning the dough before putting it through the rollers. They stop at the second narrowest notch. Liliana places the strips on a well-floured board. Carla, meanwhile, makes the pear filling. These are dried heritage pears called Closein. Carla has boiled these pears until they are soft, which takes about 2 hours. These pears are sweet but ripen late, have thick skins, and it was only the poor who ate them traditionally. She blitzes them into a thick paste, seeds and all. Carla then spoons the pear along the pasta. Liliana dabs water around the mixture to help the pasta layers stick together. The ladies fold over the pasta, pressing between the filling. They use a pastry cutter to make square ravioli. Leon enjoys this task. Traditionally, this was a celebration pasta for the poor because the pears couldn't be sold and cooks had to find a way of putting them to good use. This type of ravioli has been made since the 14th century. Recipes vary slightly from village to village. Carla, helped by Leon, cooks the ravioli in boiling salted water for about 5 minutes. Carla smears a little butter over the ravioli. These are dressed with plenty of Parmigiano cheese. The sweet and savoury flavour combination really does work. And Leon approves. Buon appetito!
Okay, so for this northern installment, the last region is Friuli, Venezia Giulia, and a ravioli called Cjarsons. And actually, every village has a different filling. So there are about 5 or 6 variations minimum. And what's unusual about them is that there's this sweet and savory mixture in the middle. Enjoy.
Olympia lives in Sutrio, close to the Austrian border. She has a large vegetable garden from which she gathers herbs for her Cjarsons ravioli. Her mixture includes parsley, mint, basil, sage, wild fennel and lemon balm. She picks through the herbs, removing any tough stalks. 2 types of Olympia's biscuits or cookies are plain. One is apple flavoured, and she also adds some amaretti. She blitzes them all into fine crumbs. Olympia likes to make about 1,000 Cjarsons at a time for family and friends. Normal mixing bowls aren't big enough. These are chives, which she likes to add separately to the other herbs. She chops these in her food processor and stirs them into the biscuits. Olympia grates some smoked ricotta and adds this along with some normal ricotta. This is half a bar of plain chocolate with hazelnut. Olympia adds this along with plenty of cinnamon. This mix of savoury and sweet flavours is characteristic of the Carnia area, and every village has its own recipe. Olympia grates the zest of 3 lemons and juices them. She stirs this in, making sure to remove any stray pip. She has already boiled a kilo of whole potatoes. She removes the skin and rices them into the mixture. She sprinkles in some salt. Olympia then adds 3 jars of jam, pear, fig and apricot. And a splash of rum. She squishes everything together and then tastes it for the balance of flavours. It should be sweet. And there is one more ingredient to be added. Olympia takes her large sautepan and warms a mixture of clarified butter called ont locally and seed oil. She grates half an onion and softens it before pouring in some coarsely ground maize. She adds the sweet herby biscuit paste to the pan and mixes everything together. This has to cool completely before being made into Cjarsons. To make the pasta dough, Olympia heats a combination of oil and water with a little salt. She pours this all at once into 00 flour and carefully mixes it together without scalding her hands. This makes a very soft dough. We only need to film a plateful, so Olympia rolls out a little pasta and uses a glass to make 7 centimeter rounds. She makes them larger by rolling them more. Then she dots knobs of filling into the center of each circle. Olympia makes a semicircle with the pasta and presses the edges together. Then she crimps the pasta to give it a frill. Livia has a go. Olympia simmers some Cjarsons in boiling salted water. While they cook, she grates some smoked ricotta onto a plate. She places the Cjarsons on top and then she grates more ricotta over them. Lastly, Olympia pours over plenty of melted honte. And it's Luis's turn to taste the pasta. Grazie mille, Olympia.
That's all for now, and see you next Wednesday for part 2 when we're in central Italy.